himself is reviewing the story with the Jewish people, which is unbelievable that took place. So what story is he talking about today? He's really getting into the story of the spies. And as I'm reading it, I'm thinking, I was looking at it last night as I was preparing, and I'm like, perhaps the sin of the spies was maybe one of the greatest calamities, if not the greatest calamity of the Jewish people, because, right, the golden calf happened, it brought tremendous sin, but they moved on. God forgave them. But after the sin of the spies, God did not forgive them, right? Everybody died that was of age. So there's something about it, besides the fact, okay, that they messed up already many, many, many times. And maybe you could say Hashem said enough already. But the spies was actually, like it had the greatest impact. And now they had to stay in the desert for 38 years and deal with whatever they had to deal with because of the tragedy that took place. So then I look at it and I say, well, what was the sin of the spies? It's that the Jews didn't have faith and trust in Hashem. They basically gave up and they didn't believe Hashem could lead them in. So in life, I'm just saying a lesson we can learn is the importance of us, really not giving up and not constantly falling down and being afraid and scared. So that's a very big thing. I think we could take a lesson. And here's Moshe Rabbeinu, Moshe, our teacher, rehashing the story with the Jewish people. So here Moshe describes it. Verse 22. You all gathered to me, Moshe Rabbeinu tells them. And Rashi says in an interesting, very unhealthy way that when they came to approach Moshe, he says it was right away at the onset. Even the way you approached me was unhealthy. And Rashi says, what was so unhealthy about the approaching? He says, usually there's a decency, there's a respect, a basic respect that's given to elderly people. And he says, we see in other times in the Torah, or Moshe is going to talk about it, that when you come, you have a complaint, or you have a question, you have a discussion, the heads of the tribes come, and the elders don't cut them off, and the young don't cut off the elders. But you know how you approached me by the sin of the spies? Everybody came running. They didn't care. The young ran and pushed aside the elders. The elders pushed aside the leaders of the tribe. It was totally disorderly and dysfunction, describing, you can imagine the fear-mongering that was going on when the spies came back with the bad news. They were literally in a very unhealthy situation, petrified, afraid, and without any decency. They totally lost their calm and collectiveness, which is a sin of the spies, is that they weren't, they basically gave up on life. They were afraid. So you all came to me. But when you said to me, Moshe says, he's rehashing the story with them. You told me, we will send men in front of us. Moses, we would like to send men in front of us. They approach Moshe. And they're going to scout out the land to see what's going on. V'yashivu Isanu Davar, and they'll report back to us. They'll bring us back a report. Which way we should go up. In other words, how to enter, how to conquer Israel. And the cities, the Sharnavi Alain that we're going to come to. So approached me in a very unhealthy way. The young were disrespectful. They were pushing away the elders. Totally not healthy situation. You come up to me and you said, I want to send men to scout out the way and to see what cities are there. Rashi says there were three things that Moshe is detailing here. You wanted to find out what language people will speak, what language the Canaanites speak. You wanted to find out also which highways and roads to take, because there's no such thing as a direct road. There's always like roads bend and turn. So we need to send scouts to plan accordingly how we're going to enter, what paths, what roads we'll take. And also, we also have to know which cities to conquer first. So they wanted a battle plan. They came to Moshe and said to Moshe Rabbeinu, we want a battle plan. We want to send out spies to figure out what's the best way to conquer it, what cities we should conquer first. We need to know what language they speak, I guess, to be ready, and also how the roads go so we could attack it. Verse 23, and this idea was okay, was good in my eyes. So Rashi says, in my eyes, but not in God's eyes. God was not happy with the fact that we were sending spies. I okayed it, not God. God never was happy with it. It was me who okayed it. Rashi asks a question. So why is Moshe Rabbeinu screaming at the Jewish people if Moshe okayed it? We have an interesting question here. Rashi says Moshe Rabbeinu is the one that okayed the Jews entering the land of Israel. You okayed it. Why are you screaming at us now if we asked you and you said okay? And Rashi comes up with a very interesting sales pitch and how to be a salesman And those who are salesmen probably know this is very true. Okay, here's the sales pitch that he says. He says it's an example of someone goes to his friend to sell him his donkey. Imagine today you're selling a car, right? Imagine, listen, literally like gives an example of a donkey. But you could say the same exact thing with a car. And the guy asks, he want to sell your car. He's selling a beautiful car. So he says, can I try out the car before I buy it? So the guy says, yeah, sure, you could try it out. Okay, so can I take the car on the mountains and the valleys? Can I go up a steep hills with this car that you're saying is so amazing? He says, sure, take it wherever you want. The guy says, you know what? I'll pay you. I don't need to take it. But if the salesman who's selling the car starts to say, I don't know, I don't want to let you take it, right away the guy's going to say, all right, I don't believe you, right? This guy's selling me a broken down car. It's not really going to work. So of course, a good salesman says yes right away. So of course I agree to you, I guess, in the analogy Moshe Rabbeinu saying that yes, you can check out the land. Because you know what would happen if I said no? Much worse would happen. So Moshe Rabbeinu was telling them they should go. Not that he liked the idea, he okayed it, but there was no other choice for what should the salesman do. So I guess it really is the Jews' fault. And this that Moshe okayed it was just so the Jews should not start saying, oh, the land's not really good. So then I agreed, and I chose from you 12 men. And Rashi says they were selected, the finest among you. The 12 spies who went up were the finest among you. Ishachad l'shevet, one man for a tribe. So here he tells us how many spies there were. There were only 12. And Rashi says this teaches us that Shevet Levi was not part of it. So Levi, I guess, was not part of the sin. They were not part of the tribe. They weren't involved in this too. If I remember correctly, it wasn't just the women. Also, Shevet Levi was also not involved in the sin of the spies. They didn't even send up spies. Nobody of their tribes went. Verse 24, Vayifnu vayalu ahara, and they turned and they went up on the mountain. So you guys went up. Ayave ad Nachal Eshkol, and you went to the Eshkol Valley. It means like a cluster of grapes. You went up to the valley of the cluster of grapes. And Rashi says, why is it called the cluster of grapes? Because the spies, when they come back, they'll bring back a cluster of grapes from that city, from that area. So wasn't called yet cluster of grapes, but it's kind of going to get its name later on because the cluster of grapes came from there. Vayiraglu oisa, and you guys spied out the land. And Rashi says you were in 4 lines, 4 different directions. You traveled along the length and the breadth in 4 different directions. I was reading some commentaries on the Rashi exactly what this means. North to west, whatever, the different ways that they were going. And you did 4 different directions, you scattered out the land. Verse 25. And you took in your hands, you brought back, with souvenirs. Nipri haaretz, from the fruit of the land. Vayaridu eleinu, and you brought it down to us. You brought it down. Rashi says something interesting about the geography in Israel. It's when you say you brought it down, it means that you were higher than us. And Rashi says, we learn from here that Israel is higher altitude than all the other lands, because whenever you're coming from Israel anywhere else, you're always going down. I think the Talmud has a whole discussion. Does it mean spiritually or physically? But anyway, Rashi teaches us here that Israel's higher, so when they came down to go back to bring their souvenirs home, they're going down. Vayishivu Aisanu Davra, and you gave us a response. You brought back the answer. Vayombru, and 2 of the 12 spies said, Kalev and Yeshua, as Rashi says, Toiva haaretz, the land is very good. It's very good land. Hashem that Hashem is giving us. So 2 of the 12 guys came back with an amazing report about how good the land is. Verse 26, but you didn't want to go up. You didn't wish to go up. But Tamru, and you rebelled. Be Hashem, against the word of Hashem, Elokeichem, your God. You turned away, you rebelled, as Rashi says. Where's there a little bit of noise here? Asked me. Okay. And you rebelled against Hashem, and you gossiped against God, you murmured against God in your tents. You slandered Hashem in your tents. And what did you say against Hashem there? Besinas Hashem oisanu. Because Hashem hates us. Because you in your tent said that God hated us. Did God take us out of the land of Egypt? to give us over to the hands, the Amori or the Amorites, Lashmidenu, to exterminate us. And Rashi says something fascinating here, I think. That whatever you feel about your friend, you project it on your friend. In other words, it's very interesting. You might say that your friend hates you, but it's not really true. You really hate your friend. And you're projecting it that he hates you, but you're really the one who hates him. So the Jews hated Hashem, but instead of being honest about their feelings and what's taking place, they said that Hashem hates them. Fascinating, very, very interesting way of sometimes, in other words, you could be really angry at that guy for hating you, but it's the opposite. It's just you're projecting falsely. You're not in touch with your feelings about what's really going on. So you said that Hashem hated you. And Rashi says, what are one of the things in the tense that they murmured against God? Very interesting thing. He's saying that imagine an example about a father that has two sons. And the father has to leave over, right? A lot of fights happen at the end of life, and there's something left over from the parents to the children. The father has to leave over two fields to his sons. One of the fields is irrigated, has constant irrigation, and it's well irrigated, and the other one is irrigated by the rain. And he gives the beloved son the constantly irrigated one, because it's always naturally irrigated. And the one he doesn't love as much, the kid he doesn't like as much, he gives the one that's not naturally irrigated. It needs the rain, not on its own irrigated, because it's harder. He has to rely on the rain. So Hashem took us out of Mitzrayim, which had canals, that would every day would rise by high tide, and the canal would water all the lands. He took us out of there and brought us to Israel. We always got water, as everybody knows, we always got water problems in Israel because we're relying on the rain in order to water the fields. So they said that, look where Hashem took us out to this mountainous area, unlike Egypt, which was like flatlands, and the canals could constantly bring water, irrigate our fields. We need to rely on rain now. Now, by the way, I don't see Rashi saying the answer, but I think the answer is that it's a bigger blessing. Hashem wants to be the one to give you rain, that you shouldn't have to wait for high tide and maybe schlep water at times and so on. It's much easier if the rain comes straight from heaven and waters you. But anyway, the Jews, again, were projecting their hatred of Hashem, that as if Hashem hates them. This is what they were saying in their tents. They were murmuring against Hashem. Ana nachnu oilim. And they continue. They said, where should we go? Achenu heimasnu. To where are we going? Our brethren heimasnu were discouraged. As the favenu, they discouraged each other. Everybody else, it's very bad. Like when you're trying to run a shul or any organization, and then there's all of a sudden people who start murmuring and start challenging. Like it could be a very difficult situation. So here are some of the Jews who are all of a sudden murmuring, where's God taking us? This is such a bad investment. We're giving up Egypt. We're going to Israel. And they said, Lamor, this is what they said, Am Gadol v'Rami Menu. There's a bigger and stronger nation. Arim Gedolos uvitzuros bashamayim. They have cities, large and fortified up to the heavens. Rashi said, obviously it's an exaggeration, but they look at the real estate that was there, the buildings that were there. They're like the buildings go up to the heavens. We also saw the sons of the Anakim, the giants. We saw the giants over there. And they were petrified. Fear gripped them. And I told you, Moshe said, don't be broken, don't be demoralized, don't be afraid. Don't be broken and demoralized. Don't be afraid of them. Hashem Elokeichem, and I told you guys, Moshe is rehashing the story with them. Hashem Elokeichem hoilech lefnechem, God who walks in front of you, hu yilachem lachem, he will be the one who will fight for you. Everything that you guys saw in Egypt just 40 years ago when you were in Egypt, the great miracles that we saw that took place, Hashem will take care of you here too. Don't be afraid. And then the way Hashem took care of us in the desert. Why are you guys afraid? Remember how Hashem took care of us in the desert with Midbar. And in the desert, that you saw, as Nisa'acha, how Hashem carried you. Just like a man, a father, will carry his son. You saw with your own eyes how Hashem took care of you. Why are you scared over here? The whole way that you went until you made it here to the border of southern border of Israel. And Rashi says, you know how good Hashem took care of you. Like a father who's walking with his son and bandits come and start attacking his son. Father picks up the child, he puts him on his shoulder and starts fighting, protecting his child at the same time, fighting off the bandits. Hashem had the clouds and the fire and everything the way he took care of you. And all of a sudden, in this thing, you don't believe in God, that he promised, he guaranteed, he told Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, he's going to bring you Israel. Why are you guys so afraid, right? Moshe is recounting the story. What happened to you guys? That walked in front of you in order to search out a place that you should camp. God literally was like a camping trip, which Hashem went ahead and prepared the camping for you with a fire at night, so you could be able to see where you were going, with a cloud by day. God, look how much God took care of you. And God heard your words. He got angry. And he swore, saying, if any of the men of these people that are alive will see this evil generation, the good land that I promised to give to your forefathers, nobody else is going to see it. Besides, for Kalev, who Yerenu, he will see it, and he's going to get the land. He spoke good about Israel. That he walked in Levanav to his children, because he completely followed Hashem with his whole heart. Moshe Rabbeinu says, and I also got caught up in Moshe Rabbeinu kind of blames what happened to the Jews on his punishment too. Hashem got angry at me at that time because of you. You're not either going into Israel. Yeshua will be the one to lead them. Him I'm going to make strong because he will inherit the land to these people. And that is the end of today's Chumash, my friends, that we studied today. So fascinating story, a story about having the fortitude and the commitment and the courage. As I said when I started this class, that I think it's very powerful. It's that, the sin of the golden calf, okay, the number of people who sinned with the golden calf, they got punished. But here, as a whole, Hashem just said, that's it. All the men over 20 years old, they're not going to Israel. You got to stay enough. The effects were the greatest. And maybe this is the biggest thing, is to have that confidence in Hashem that we will succeed in life and not to give up. Any questions or comments on today's Chumash?